I sat at my desk and remembered the 30 years since our wedding, as well as our honeymoon, and the best memories of my life. As I reflect on these treasured memories of our honeymoon in Hawaii with Maggie, I am overcome with a deep sense of nostalgia and gratitude. It was an extraordinary and truly magical time that will forever hold a special place in my heart. From the very beginning, there was a feeling that we had entered an enchanted kingdom that washed away all the worries of the world, leaving a serenity that cannot be described in words. Walking hand in hand along the pristine beaches of Waikiki, with gentle waves lapping at our feet, we were engrossed in the beauty of the world around us. The fragrant scent of plumeria permeated the air, serving as a constant reminder of the romance and tranquility that enveloped us. However, it was not only the captivating landscapes that made our honeymoon unforgettable, but also the experiences we shared were etched into the fabric of our souls. Exploring the lush rainforests and stumbling upon hidden waterfalls was a revelation of the majesty of Mother Nature. Standing together, we marveled at the raw power and splendor that surrounded us. Our cliff-top villa in Maui gave us panoramic views that seemed to stretch on forever. Each sunset was a masterpiece, painting the sky in vibrant hues, and in those precious moments when we were held close to each other, our hearts were filled with an overwhelming feeling of love and devotion to each other. And the nights, oh, the nights were a symphony of romance, starting with a candlelight dinner on the beach under a canopy of stars as we savored the exquisite taste of fresh seafood and island delicacies. But it was the tender look in Maggie's eyes that made these evenings truly magical. Hawaii has become more than just a destination. They became the epitome of our love story. A chapter filled with cherished memories and shared dreams created just for the two of us. Thinking back to our honeymoon, I relive the beauty and depth of our connection at that time. Hawaii served as a catalyst for our love, strengthening our bond and giving us moments of incomparable joy and peace. I cherish with sincere gratitude the precious memories we created together in this oasis of romance. Now, 30 years later, while I was lost in thought, my secretary came into my office and looked at me looking out the window for a moment, and then asked, "Jason, what or who should we thank for your good mood lately? Did you win the lottery or something? Would you like to share?" At that moment I realized that I was smiling and had actually been in a good mood for the last 2 weeks. I explained that my wife had become very attentive and loving lately, and for the first time in years I felt appreciated and loved. I concluded by saying that I felt like I was on my second honeymoon, and for the first time in years I was looking forward to being with her full time and couldn't get her out of my head. For the past 2 weeks, I have called my Maggie several times a day to hear her voice and tell her how much I love and miss her. Acted like a lovesick school teenager, but I didn't care. I was happy again and didn't want it to stop. Maggie and I have a strong marriage, but a 30-year relationship can become less exciting and more mundane. But for the past 2 weeks, Maggie had been frisky, wanting to have sex almost every night and doing things to me that she hadn't done in years. I never once suspected or thought that the change in her affections was anything other than a rebirth of our marriage. I planned to surprise her with a romantic evening and left work early. With a smile on my face, I paid for 24 roses at the florist and filled out a card with a heart expressing my love, then stopped at the liquor store and bought a bottle of her favorite wine along with a large box of chocolate-covered cherries, also her favorite. Tonight I will not only tell Maggie how much I love her and how happy she makes me, but I will also surprise her with the 7-night cruise I bought for us in honor of our love. Smiling and springing as I walked, I entered my house through the garage. As I walked up the kitchen steps, I saw instead of my loving wife Maggie Brandy, our 29-year-old daughter, sitting at our kitchen table. I smiled, kissed her forehead, and said hello. "Hey baby, where's your mom?" 2 weeks earlier, he and his mother had a conversation. "Brandy, I'm not sure about this. I love your dad very much, and I'm afraid that if I go through this I'll hurt him. Mom, Dad loves you, and he will understand. You yourself said that you need something more than what you received before, and Dad is not getting any younger. I know that he will understand your needs and allow you to have this one-time pleasure. Brandy, there's no way I can stand in front of your father and tell him I'm on a date with another man. I just can't do it. Then let me do it. Alexander will be waiting for you at the restaurant at 7 in the evening, and you will be ready to leave by 6 in the evening. When Dad gets home, I'll be here and explain everything to him, and you'll get the experience you crave. Honey, yes, I agreed to this date. But I have doubts. This is wrong, and I shouldn't go. How will I be able to look your father in the eye for the next 2 weeks knowing that I agreed to go on a date with another man? Well, I can suggest that you don't tell him anything, but during these 2 weeks show him how much you love him. Let him know that he has nothing to worry about, and when I explain everything, he will understand that what you are doing is not about love, but only about new friendships and a little fun sex. Reach out to him and rock his world, and when I explain the situation that evening, he will welcome you back with open arms. Believe me, Dad loves you and is ready to do anything for you. He always gave you what you wanted. Just like that. Showing his love for you, Mom. Probably yes, and maybe you're right. Well, I mean, it's just one date, and it doesn't mean I'm leaving your father for another man. Having a fun night out 30 years later shouldn't be a problem. I'm gonna show your dad how wonderful he is, and how much I love him every night, until date night. And then when I get back to him, I'm going to try to make him the happiest man in the world. Mom, just make him feel loved and appreciated. He is a great guy, and will give you this one-of-a-kind experience. Now, I have to get home to cook dinner for Mike. Thanks, baby, and say hi to Mike. When will you two give us grandchildren? Soon. We've already talked and plan to start working on it in a few months, Brandy said before heading home. Maggie sat alone in the art studio Jason had built for her behind their house, in front of his latest project. Lately she had been having difficulty being creative because the thought of being with another man weighed heavily on her. Guilt blocked her creativity until Maggie remembered Brandy's words, and suddenly her brushes came to life, covering the canvas with vibrant colors and emotional landscapes. Suddenly she felt confident that she was doing the right thing for herself, and that her husband would give her this experience. She found herself talking to herself as she sat alone, feeling peace overcome her guilt. Jason may be angry at first, but I know I can make him understand. I truly love this man, and he was such a wonderful husband and father. I will be the best wife and show him how much I love him. The first night of my plan to shower him with love, I put on his favorite baby doll nightgown after showering, styling my hair, and spending some time on my makeup. Met Jason as he entered the house, wearing a nightgown with high heels, and took him straight to the bedroom where she undressed him. Unbuckling his belt and taking off his pants, I surprised him with something I hadn't done in years. I gave him pleasure below the belt with great enthusiasm. His smile made me feel warm and happy that I could do this for him, and I thought, why haven't I done this all this time? He hugged me and told me with a big smile how much he loved me. Maggie, this was the best meeting at home in recent years. For what reason, baby? I just wanted to show you how special you are and how much I love you. Did you like it? I liked it, and it hasn't happened for so long that I forgot how much I missed it. I felt pleased. I pulled him onto my bed, and we kissed for several minutes. It was the best sex I've had in years, and I started to rethink my date with Alexander. Over the next 2 weeks, our sex life reached a new level of excitement, and Jason was a new man, smiling, laughing, telling jokes, and just as loving as before. I was happier than I had been in a long time, and rethought my plans for date night. Even told Brandy how much things had changed, and that maybe I didn't need this experience anymore because my dad and I had our spirits back. Mom, this is great, but don't give up just yet. Let's see how the next 2 weeks go. Just enjoy each other and see where it goes. There is no need to cancel anything yet. We'll see how you feel in 2 weeks, and you can always cancel at the last minute. I'm sure Alexander will understand, but you have to realize that you may never have this chance again. Okay. Maybe you're right. Tell me more about Alexander. I know he is your friend's father, but tell me again about his situation. Of course, Mom. When he learned that his wife, Mary, had an inoperable brain tumor, he took time off from work and spent every second with her until her death. She was the love of his life, and after her death, he became a shell of his former self. Except for work, he did not leave the house and became a recluse, not communicating with his family or friends. Her death created a hole in his heart that he could not fill. In the last 3 years, he became depressed and quiet. When Mary and I suggested that he leave the house and start dating, he explained that he didn't know anyone and didn't know how to be with anyone except his wife, Mary. Mom, as I listened to this wonderful man, tears came to my eyes, and it occurred to me that I might have a solution for both of you. I told him about your deep love for Dad for 30 years, and what a wonderful wife you were. I told him that over the years, your intimate life has become stagnant, and Dad has slowed down with age. She told me how we had discussed going on a date to get a little pick-me-up, but not for a long-term romance, but for the sake of becoming friends, and maybe for something more, but nothing long-term, since you would never leave your father. When he saw your photo, his eyes lit up. He smiled and asked, "Do I believe that you would want to go on a date with him? Here's our conversation. Mr. Connor, I assure you that, when I show Mom your photo and tell her about you, she will not miss this chance. But she's a few years older than you. Won't that be a problem?" "No. If she looks the same, not at all. I would love to spend some time with her." "What about your father? Will he really allow her to date me? After all, this is his wife." "Like I said, leave it to me. Dad will do everything for Mom to make her happy, and she needs it no less than you. I think you two can help each other and become good friends. Leave it to me, and I will arrange everything. I'll talk to her, and if she agrees, I'll give you her number, and then you can arrange a date and spend the night together." "Nights? What do you mean?" "Mr. Connor, you are both adults. Both need each other. Be creative and plan an evening and night together." "So, you see, he thinks you are beautiful and would like to spend the night with you if you are interested. I'll give him your cell phone number and tell him to call you during the day. He really looks good and is about 10 years younger than you. And I know you will be happy. He just needs communication and a friend, and I know that you can help each other." The next day, Alexander called Maggie, and after a wonderful conversation, he invited her to become his companion and spend the night with him. When he said how beautiful she was in the photo, and how wonderful it would be if she went on a date with him, she felt like a schoolgirl. The excitement of her doing something so different, and his flirting made her feel butterflies in her stomach. She agreed to the date and told him that she was looking forward to meeting him. He said he would pick her up, but she replied that she would prefer to meet him at the restaurant. They texted each other daily and flirted with each other more and more as the evening of their date approached. By the evening of the date, Maggie's text messages would not have withstood the simplest test of a wife's fidelity. She was constantly excited, imagining what she had to do. She tried not to forget about Jason, and every evening she put more and more energy into their lovemaking. Now Jason walked around with a grin on his face, and Maggie walked around with an uncontrollable desire for sex. This was a new level that she enjoyed beyond her dreams. I loved my daughter, and considered her the most beautiful girl in the world. I was so proud of how she developed into the woman she has become today. I wish I had spent more time with her as she grew up. But I worked hard to give them a good life, and tried to always be there for her as much as possible. I smiled when I saw her, but I was embarrassed. "Darling, what are you doing here, and where is your mother?" I said, and she watched as I placed 24 roses on the table, along with a bottle of wine and a box of chocolates. "I have a special surprise for your mom tonight, and I can't wait to see her." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out travel plans and tickets for a 7-day cruise. "I'm taking your mom on a 7-day cruise on the new yacht Love, and I can't wait to see her face when she finds out about it. Don't say anything when she gets home. I want to surprise her." "Dad?" When she called me Daddy, I always smiled, remembering how she was a little girl and sat on my lap. But I realized that something was wrong. There were tears in her eyes, and she was all out of breath, worried about what I was going to hear. "Dad, we need to talk," she said, and a tear rolled from her eye. She saw the worry on my face. "What's happened? Is there something wrong with Mom?" "No, Mom is fine. Please just sit down and let me explain everything." I sat up and looked into her tear-filled eyes as she tried to continue. After a moment she spoke. "Dad, you know how much Mom loves you, and she told me how good everything is between you two lately." "Yes, and I love her too. That's why I want to show her how I feel." Now, seeing her tears, I realized that everything she was going to tell me was not going as she planned. "I'm really sorry, Daddy, but Mommy has a date." I sat in silence, hearing the words, but not understanding their meaning. Her tears flowed as my brain connected the dots into anger. "Brandy, what are you talking about? Where is your mother?" I demanded in a loud voice that made her shrink away from me in fear. "Mommy loves you very much, Daddy, and you may take this the wrong way, but Mommy went on a date with another man and won't be back home until tomorrow. She couldn't tell you herself, and I volunteered to tell you because she couldn't hurt you. Just one night and Mom will be back tomorrow." "What is this, a joke? You can't be serious. Your mother would never do anything to betray me like that. She was so loving and we were so close. I cannot believe this. Dad, she loves you. She just had to do one thing. After 30 years of marriage, she felt uneasy and needed something more in life, at least once. Nothing will change between you, except that she will love you even more for giving it to her." I looked closely at my daughter. "Brandy, why are you getting involved in this? Your mother shouldn't have brought you into this, and I should be discussing this with her, not you. How did she get you into all this?" "Dad, you know that Mom and I have always been very close, and we tell each other everything. She told me that things had slowed down between you two in the bedroom, and that she no longer felt wanted and needed stimulation. My friend's father lost his wife several years ago. He was so depressed and also needed communication, and I sort of introduced them." I quickly stood up, knocking over the chair behind me. "What the heck? Are you kidding? Did you introduce them and set up your mother on a date with another man? Is that what you mean?" Lowering her head and looking at the floor, she was silent. Now I was pacing back and forth in the kitchen, trying to make sense of this disaster. "Damn it, Brandy, answer me!" I shouted, standing over her. "Did you set it all up? My wife, your mother, is on a date with your friend's father and you arranged this?" At these angry words, saliva flew out of my mouth. "I'm really sorry, Daddy. But yes, it sounds bad when you say it like that, but I did it out of love for my friend's mom and dad." "Holy hell! What have you done? Love for your friend's mom and dad? What about your love for me? Am I some piece of trash that you can shit on and expect me to accept whatever comes into your head? Where is she now? And what did you mean when you said she wouldn't come home until tomorrow?" "Dad, he took her to a restaurant, I don't know which one. And then they will spend the night together, but only this time. She'll be back tomorrow, and Daddy, she only loves you. All she's been telling me for the past 2 weeks is how much she loves you and doesn't want you to get hurt because of it. It's just a date and one night. She knew that you would understand and give her this one time." "So, is that all?" I, like a mug, believed that her new advances for the last 2 weeks were motivated by love. But now you're telling me that it was her way of getting rid of guilt. Well, this will not lead to anything good, I assure you." Still in tears, she begged. "Dad, it's not like that at all. She never pretended or hurt you. On the contrary, she did everything possible to let you know that she loved you. Daddy, can't you just give her one night? You know that she loves you and cannot live without you. She told me she was looking forward to your retirement and spending time with your grandchildren. Mike and I are planning to have kids and we need both of you." Well, isn't that damn unusual? That ship sailed the moment she agreed to go on a date with some man who wasn't me. Who is this guy? My friend Mary's dad. He's a really nice guy and you'll like him, Daddy. I think you have a lot in common. Oh yeah, we could be such good buddies. So you think I could befriend a man who knowingly dates a married woman, my wife? Maybe we can become drinking buddies and I can let him use your mom on the weekends. Is that what you two have planned for me? Brandy sank into her chair, realizing there was a serious flaw in her plan. She had never seen me so angry and talking to her like that. A shiver ran down her spine as she hid from my anger. Pacing around the room, I finally regained control of my emotions, turned to my daughter, and spoke in a poisonous voice. In a voice she didn't want to hear anymore. My hurt and pain was obvious, and made her feel small and guilty for her role in all of this. Listen to me carefully, Brandy. I want you to leave now. I need to be alone to understand what you two did to me tonight. I don't want to see or hear you. Do not call me. Do not write. Never. Your betrayal is unforgivable, and now I have no daughter. You are dead to me. Do you understand what this means? I'm no longer your father, and I don't have a daughter. Now get out of my house and never speak to me again. Brandy sobbed openly with her head in her hands. Dad, please don't say that. I love you, and I want to stay here tonight. Mom and I planned for me to stay with you. We don't want you to be alone. Brandy, the level of disrespect you showed me makes me wonder if you ever respected me or loved me as your father. You are your mother's daughter. All these years I worked like a horse to give you and your mother a better life, and such gratitude. No, turns out I'm only here as a meal ticket, and have obviously never earned respect from any of you. Between tears and sobs, she continued. Dad, I love you. Please don't say that. Just leave it to your mom and let her explain everything tomorrow. You've had 30 wonderful years together and I know you love her. Give her just one thing and she won't leave you, Daddy. She loves you. She may have her one thing, two things, or 1,000 things, but she will never have me again. Forgiveness is beyond my capabilities. Everyone involved will be punished, including the lonely man who took my wife, a married woman. Now, go away. You showed your true colors. You still have your mother. Nothing will change for you. You two are made for each other. Like I said, Brandy, in my heart you are no longer my daughter. Now please leave me. She literally ran out of the house with tears streaming down her face in pain, a pain she had never felt before. She never thought her father would react like this. Had he really abandoned her? For the first time she realized that she might have crossed a line in helping her mom with this idea. She knew he loved them both, and she could clearly see that he was angry. No, he was furious, and she prayed that he would forgive them. Immediately after Brandy left, I called Maggie on her cell phone, and the call went straight to voicemail. I left her several messages, begging her to call me and come home. Then, after a few drinks and no call back, I left several text messages with the same message. No answer. At 2 o'clock in the morning, I realized that she would not return home and was not going to answer my calls. I was tired of feeling sorry for myself and just stared at the TV, which was broadcasting more bad news. My world turned into a nightmare in an instant. I thought about how our 30 years of marriage, the good times, the birth of our daughter, all the parties and proms, Brandy's wedding and the closeness we all shared, were now gone forever. Before she cheated, Maggie and I were still having sex 2 to 3 times a week. Yes, it became a routine, and was no longer as exciting as 30 years ago. But there were never any complaints, and in general, after sex we always hugged and fell asleep in each other's arms. There wasn't a day or a phone call that went by without us saying, "I love you" to each other, and we rarely argued. Looking out the window, I found myself looking at the art studio I had built for Maggie to support her hobby. She spent most of her time for the past 20 years creating wonderful paintings and sculptures in this studio, winning several awards for her work, which were displayed in the room I built to display all her awards and paintings. It became a shrine to my wife's work and her refuge. I always felt that, besides her daughter, that damn studio was the most important thing in her world. I was, at best, third on her list of importance. But I loved her, and everything suited me as long as she was happy. The conversation with Brandy hit me hard. The revelation that she needed to sleep with another man took me by surprise and without the slightest warning. Apparently, with all the years of working long hours to provide for my family, I was too busy to notice that she was not satisfied with me or our marriage. To do this to us without talking to me and instead share with Brandy was humiliating and fueled my anger. I thought about my life, my home, and my future. I inherited my house and property from my grandfather, and it was in my name before we got married. There was no mortgage on the house, which got me thinking. In my drunken state, with my anger welling up, I began to think of ways to hurt Maggie like she had hurt me today. As I continued to look out the window at her studio, the devil sitting on my shoulder whispered in my ear. Maybe it was the alcohol. Maybe it was the pain of betrayal or humiliation in front of my daughter. But I suddenly felt a surge of strength. With renewed energy, I jumped up from the couch and replaced my sadness with action. I made over a dozen trips to our bedroom, collected all her things, and moved them into the studio. All of her expensive shoes, dresses, clothes, underwear, jewelry, and everything that belonged to her now lay on the floor in the center of her sanctuary, the art studio. For the next hour, I walked around the house and collected all the photo albums, including all of our wedding photos, and placed them on top of the growing pile. Then I remembered that she had vacuum-sealed things in the attic. I found her wedding dress, baby clothes, and many other sentimental items, and dragged them into the pile, which was now about more than a meter high. It's amazing how much one person can collect over the years. Then I took all her pictures off the wall and put them on a pile. The sculptures, all her sketches, and everything she loved were now part of a growing pile of things. It was already 5 in the morning, and I was still on edge. I told myself I wouldn't do anything until 6 a.m. to give her a chance to come home or answer my calls and texts. If I don't get a response or she's not home, I'll finish what I started. I walked through the house again, making sure everything she owned and cared for was in the studio. At 5:30, I grabbed a 20-liter can of petrol from the garage and went to the studio, getting ready for 6 a.m. During this time, I went online, canceled the joint credit cards, and transferred money to our accounts, took cash out of the safe, and packed a few suitcases. Then I put them in my truck, since I had to spend some time away from home until the lawyer sorted everything out. I waited another 5 minutes for her to return, and at 6:05, abandoning my last hope, I poured gasoline onto the pile and along the walls of the studio. With a deep sigh, and after a few seconds of hesitation, I made my decision and threw a lit match onto the floor, which instantly ignited the pile of her treasures. The fire spread quickly, and before I had time to leave, the flames were already visible from the street. The fire quickly consumed her world and everything she loved. As I drove along the highway, a sudden realization struck me, amplified by the terrible state I was in. A terrible sadness overcame me, and tears began to stream down my face. At that moment it became clear that my once wonderful marriage had suffered the same fate as the studio. It burned down. What I didn't expect was that the fire spread from the studio to the back porch, which caught fire along with the art studio. Luckily, firefighters who put out the fire in the studio were able to extinguish the fire on the porch and save the house. The home sustained significant smoke damage and was uninhabitable until the damage was repaired. While all this was going on, I checked into a highway motel about 90 miles from the smoldering ashes that had once been my marriage and paid in cash. I didn't want to be found until I couldn't think straight, and using credit cards would make it easier if the police came looking for me. I was awake and on adrenaline until I opened the door to my room. I turned off the phone and collapsed on the bed, falling into a deep sleep, and woke up only at noon. My phone started glowing as soon as I turned it on. I had dozens of missed calls and texts from Brandy, Maggie, and the sheriff. After getting off the Uber, I met Alexander at the restaurant and was both nervous and excited to see this handsome young man waiting for me at the reception desk. He smiled when he saw me, admiring my little black dress, black sheer tights, and matching high heels. His eye was drawn to my exposed cleavage, highlighted by my exposed black bra. At the beginning of the day, I spent several hours at the salon to get my hair and makeup perfect. I wanted this one time to be exciting, memorable, and perfect for him. My companion looked pleased with what he saw, and the way he adjusted his growing manhood emphasized his reaction. My confidence grew as I realized he liked what he saw and greeted him with a tender kiss when he greeted me. We started at the bar and sat on one of the bar stools, and when I stood up, I saw that he was looking at my nylon-covered legs, down to my panties. We both smiled as he ordered our drinks. I decided to turn off my phone so that nothing would interfere with the night's entertainment. She knew that this night would never happen again, and she was going to enjoy every moment. There was chemistry between us, and we got along like we were old friends. I found myself touching his arm and flirting, something I didn't usually do with anyone, including Jason. But today I was going to unleash my inner bitch and enjoy the experience. As we finished our second glass, the lovely hostess announced that our table was ready and showed us to our seats. The dinner was wonderful, and I enjoyed the conversation and our time together. When he asked if I still wanted to spend the night with him, I took off my heels and stuck my foot between his legs. When he looked down at my red toenails, peeking through the sheer nylon covering my foot, he smiled and said it was time to go. Holding hands, he led me to his hotel room, which he had already booked. As the elevator doors opened on the 14th floor, I realized what I was about to do, and suddenly thoughts of Jason flashed through my mind. He must have noticed something because he pulled me towards his strong body. When I looked up at him, he gave me a romantic kiss, the likes of which I had never experienced. That was all I needed to forget about my husband and marriage. Tonight I was going to be his and enjoy this experience. Once in the room, he wasted no time in unzipping my dress. When it fell to the floor, he took off his clothes and stood in front of me. He spun me around and told me how sexy I looked, then took off my bra and laid me on the bed. I don't know how long it lasted, but it was so sensual and loving that I melted in anticipation of future events. I got on my knees and worshipped his beautiful tool for the next 10 minutes. He couldn't take it anymore, and forcibly removed my pantyhose and ordered me to put my heels back on because he found them so sexy. It made me feel a little lewd. While we were having sex, he kissed me several times. This man was an Olympic kissing champion. I thought briefly, gotta get Jason to do this, it's so sexy. Damn again comparisons. Enough. He continued to look deep into my eyes and said, I love you, Maggie. It was unexpected, and his words touched my heart. I can only describe it as a religious experience, and it was so powerful that I was overcome with tears of joy. We made love 4 more times that night and another time in the morning, each time as intense as the last. It was by far the best sexual experience of my life, and I was pleased with myself for allowing it to happen to Alexander. Thoughts of Jason began to bring me back to reality, but I tried to focus on the man who was hugging me as tightly as he could. As we lay there with the sun peeking through the curtains, he kissed me tenderly and stroked my hair. Maggie, as I said last night, I was serious. You are an amazing woman, so sexy and sensual, and I think I love you and want to spend more time with you. Can we meet again? Suddenly I became worried and tried to be gentle. Alexander, it was the best sex of my life, and you are a wonderful sweet man, but I'm happily married and I can't do it again. It was a one-time experience, I loved it, and you were great. You are a wonderful lover and I enjoyed every second of it. Maggie, think before you say no. Your husband doesn't seem to mind, and if you let this continue, I can make you very happy. Just think about it before you say no, please. Good, yes. I'll think about it. But this is the best I can do right now. With another deep kiss, he held me tightly to him, and I melted into his arms. If I wasn't married to Jason, I would be with this man in a heartbeat. But my husband is Jason, and I hoped that he could forgive me for what I just did. After breakfast, we left the hotel, and while he was driving me home, I turned on my phone for the first time since our date last night, and was shocked to see all the missed calls and texts. I saw Jason's message and felt a pang of guilt in my heart. This dear man was suffering, and I was not there. Tears came to my eyes, knowing that his pain was caused by me. Then, before I could move on to the next text message, the phone rang as Alexander turned into my neighborhood. Mom, where are you? Hey baby, I'm almost home. Mom? There was a fire in your house. We tried to call you all night, but it seems you turned off your phone. Fire? Where's your dad? That's the point, Mom, he's missing. Nobody knows where he is, and he doesn't answer calls either. I have a bad feeling, Mom. I'm almost there. I'll call you back. When Alexander turned the corner onto my street, I saw a fire truck and police in front of our house. I didn't see any damage at the front of the house and asked the firefighters what happened. Are you the owner of the house? He asked. Since all the neighbors were watching me as I stood with an unfamiliar handsome man, my companion. Yes, I'm Maggie Spencer. Well, Mrs. Spencer, we were able to save the house. Only the back porch was damaged. But I'm afraid you won't be able to stay here until you call the experts to clean up the smoke from inside your house. The majority of the damage was to the small cottage behind your home. I'm afraid he's completely lost. I felt my legs give out when Alexander caught me and helped me sit on the curb. My studio? Is she damaged? Sorry, Mrs. Spencer, all that's left of her is smoldering ashes. We'll try to figure out the cause of the fire, but in the meantime, the police detective has a few questions for you. I quickly stood up and ran to the back of the house before Sergeant Wilson could ask me any questions. He caught up with me as I stood in front of the remains of my most prized possession. I immediately knew that Jason must have done this as revenge for my actions. Mrs. Spencer, do you know what happened here? Asked Sergeant Wilson. No. I wasn't there last night, and I have no idea about anything. Are you her husband? He asked, turning to Alexander. No, just a friend. I felt my face turn red with embarrassment as the sergeant gave me a knowing look and asked where my husband was. I said I don't know. When he asked where I was last night, I timidly said that I was with Alexander at the Hilton Hotel in the city center. The looks thrown at me by the sergeant and his assistant made me realize the seriousness of my situation. I just admitted that I didn't spend the night with my husband, who also disappeared. The detective now had questions. Mrs. Spencer, are you and your husband separated? Do you know where he was last night? No, we are a happy married couple. And then I realized how stupid it sounded after admitting that I spent the night with another man. Do you know where he is? No, he doesn't answer calls. We'll want to talk to him, so when you talk to him, please give him my number, he said, handing me his business card. I was shaking with anger and fear. Anger at the loss of my refuge and all the work I had created over the years. Everything is gone, forever. Fear of thinking that Jason could be so angry as to do this, and what it would mean for my marriage. I needed to talk to him as soon as possible. I called Brandy. Brandy, do you know where your father is? No. I haven't talked to him since yesterday evening. Why didn't you stay here with him like we'd planned? Mom, he threw me out and said that I was no longer his daughter. Hearing these words, I felt a chill rush through my body. Jason would never say something like that, and if he did, it would be much worse than I could have imagined. Entering the house, I saw damage to the walls from smoke and felt a terrible smell that permeated our home. It is obvious that it is impossible to live here in such conditions. I walked through our house and decided to take clothes and some personal items for a few days. When I entered the bedroom, I saw that everything had disappeared and I panicked. I realized that all my clothes, shoes, and personal belongings were missing. My heart sank to my stomach as I looked at my nightstand for my wedding rings. There were none. And why did I leave my rings? What was I thinking? If Jason saw them on my dresser, he must have thought I had abandoned him and our marriage. How stupid and selfish could I be? In complete panic, I ran around the house looking into every room and realized that all my things were missing. A terrible thought suddenly came to me. Did he really burn everything? Is there really nothing left? I ran out of the house and returned to the studio to take a closer look at the remains. I saw picture frames in the middle of the room and pieces of clothing that were not completely destroyed. It was obvious that Jason had not accepted my day off as expected, but had in fact destroyed everything important to me and cut me out of his life in one fell swoop. I called Brandy, crying, and told her what happened and that I needed somewhere to stay. Alexander quickly invited me to stay with him, but he was the last person on earth I wanted to see, and I told him that I needed to be alone and that he would please leave. He was hurt by my snark and left me standing there crying. At that moment I was angry with myself and with the man with whom I spent the night. I knew I was wrong, but I blamed him for my selfish act of betrayal, when the blame clearly lay with me. Brandy, I lost your father. Mom, don't say that. Dad loves you. Honey, he burned everything. All my clothes, my paintings, my studio. All. He didn't leave me anything, not even a place to live. He doesn't pick up the phone or answer my calls. I hurt him the most and I don't blame him. What I did is unforgivable. I shouldn't have gone on that date and just told him how I felt. We could have worked things out. But my selfishness pushed him away. If I were in his place, I would never be able to take him back. What should I do now? I have neither housing nor clothes. Mom, don't blame yourself. The fault is partly mine, and you can live with us until your house is restored. This afternoon we can buy new clothes and settle you in the evening. Brandy, all my paintings and sculptures are missing. 30 years of marriage and 20 years of my life's work were destroyed, and I was left alone. I have nothing to live for. Maggie sobbed openly, while the neighbors looked at her from the road. My God, your father is calling me. I'll call you back. Fumbling with the buttons, desperately trying to answer the call, she almost passed out. But at the last second, she managed to connect. Jason, is that you? Hi, Maggie. How are you? Jason, where are you? Please come home. We need to talk. No, Maggie, I know everything from your daughter. Yes, your daughter, not mine. You are both dead to me, and this may be the last time we talk. Jason, no, please don't say that. I love you. You should know this. Jason, the studio is gone. Did you do this? Maggie, you did it. Not me. Maybe not physically, but she burned from your treachery and betrayal. When I saw that your wedding rings were thrown away, and you gave yourself to another, in my heart you died. Your actions are inexcusable, and Brandy's involvement is humiliating and incomprehensible. We're done. I'll meet with the lawyers on Monday and start the process. Please, Jason, can't we talk and work things out? You can't just throw away our 30 wonderful years like that. Maggie, we're talking. And I'm not the one who threw away our 30 wonderful years. You planned to betray me, gave me 2 weeks of amazing love to ease your conscience, and then cheated on me with the help of your daughter. There is no person on this entire earth who could accept these actions or forgive and forget this level of treachery and betrayal. It was pure evil, and I pray that you regret your actions for the rest of your pathetic life. This is the last time we talk. You can contact me through my attorney's contact information, which will be included with the divorce decree. Goodbye, Maggie. Jason, no, wait. Jason? Jason? Jason was gone, and so was the world I loved and cherished. Brandy arrived just as I was holding the phone, calling Jason, who had already hung up. We hugged each other, crying over our loss. Finally, we realized that we could not remain in the ruins that my home had become while the fire and police investigated. We needed to figure this out, so we went to Brandy's house. When we arrived at her house, she explained everything to Mike, who was shocked by her explanation of events. Brandy tried to tell the whole story, but when Mike learned that his wife had arranged a date with her friend's father, he was shocked and disgusted, and his anger flared. Brandy, you arranged a date with another man for your mother, and on top of that, you knew that your father would be alone. You should have known he wouldn't accept it. What kind of man would allow his wife to go on a date with another? Is this what you'll do when we get older? Will you voluntarily cuckold me like your mother did to your father? He was such a wonderful guy, and you and your mom were his whole world. What have you done, Brandy? I'll tell you what you did. You destroyed a good man and forced him to do unthinkable things. I can't express how disappointed I am in you, Brandy. I will contact him and apologize for your stupidity. When this is all over, you and I will have a long conversation about our future together. Having children with you is officially on hold until I better understand your values. I'll tell you straight, I don't share them, and I will never tolerate such betrayal. She was shocked by his anger and surprised that he did not understand her mother's situation. It was just a one-time date after 30 years of marriage, for God's sake. So what? Later, she realized that the big problem was the end of her parents' marriage, the loss of her father and her mother's happy life. Soon, they will all know the consequences of her action. 5 long days later, I returned to my house to assess the damage. I wasn't going to file an insurance claim because I didn't want to add any more potential costs to what I already had. At the meeting with the lawyer, I explained that the house belonged to me and was not part of the settlement. Maggie can get half our savings and no child support. If she resists, I will file a suit for adultery and tell everyone how she cheated on me with her daughter's friend's father. I've already met with a lawyer and started filing divorce papers. Then I asked for the name of a criminal arson lawyer, but after meeting with him, I realized that since I owned the property, there probably wouldn't be a criminal prosecution unless I filed an insurance claim, which I had no intention of doing. In the worst-case scenario, firefighters may issue a fine, but criminal charges will not go through the courts unless a false report is filed. One of our neighbors, who Brandy went to school with, called her when she saw me come home and enter the house. Brandy quickly came to me. I was inspecting the damage and assessing the work needed to make the house livable when I heard the front door open. "Dad! Dad, where are you?" I heard Brandy scream as she entered the house. I didn't answer and continued assessing the damage. Looking out the window and seeing the pile of ashes that had once been Maggie's hideout, I smiled. When Brandy found me in one of the bedrooms, she quickly ran up to me and gave me a big hug. "Daddy, I am so sorry. Please forgive us. We love you." "Brandy, I will never forgive either of you, and I already told you to never talk to me again. Now please let me go and leave me alone and know, you are my father and you must forgive me. I am your only daughter and you love me. Pay attention. I no longer have a daughter, only a treacherous woman who broke my heart. Now you are not my daughter. Please leave me alone. Dad, Mom needs you. She lives with us and misses you very much. She cries all the time and wants to apologize to you for her mistake. Could you come to my house and see her?" "Never!" The moment she went on that date and spent the night with another man, she ended our marriage. Hell, she even left her wedding rings on the table, which means the end of our marriage. It's over and I won't talk to her anymore. You can both contact me through my lawyer. Later today I will buy a new phone and number, but for now you better go and be with your cheating mother. Are you really going to throw away 30 years of a happy marriage with your mother? No, not me. Your mother threw away these 30 years as soon as she took off the rings and went to her lover. It was you and your mother who ruined my 30 happy years, and for this I will never forgive or forget you. Now get out of my house." The second time, Brandy ran out of her childhood home crying. The pain of her dad telling her that she was no longer his daughter was devastating and heartbreaking. Even years of therapy could never take away the pain of his words. The next day, Maggie was served with divorce papers and collapsed, realizing that her marriage was over because of her selfish act of infidelity. She tried to fight him, went to counseling, tried to talk to Jason, but to no avail. He never spoke to her or Brandy again. Mike finally got through to Jason and expressed his anger and disappointment at what the girls had done. He said he'd changed his mind about having children because of his feelings about Brandy's loyalty and her involvement in what they did to Jason. Mike would never want to live with a woman who thought like this and is currently undergoing couples counseling to see if they can save their marriage. Maggie wanted to move back into the house after Jason rebuilt it, but the divorce agreement stated that the house belonged to Jason and was not part of the divorce agreement, and she would have to find her own place. The judge eventually awarded her half of their savings and $3,000 a month in child support for 10 years, which he had no intention of paying. Maggie will have to find a job and support herself, something she had not had to do during the previous 30 years of their marriage. She eventually moved out of her daughter's apartment and into a small one-room apartment near the city center, where she found work at a small art gallery as a sales agent to make ends meet. Maggie's creative freedom was suddenly in jeopardy. She will no longer be able to spend all her time in the beautiful studio that Jason built for her. She will no longer be able to sit in front of her art projects and enjoy the beautiful view of the lake from the large panoramic windows that her husband gave her. Soon, she will be too busy with work and will use all her free time to make her life even a little like before. All her free time was gone, along with her luxury and happy marriage, all for one exciting night with another man. She can never find enough tears. She would never have enough tears to erase all the hurt and suffering caused by her one-time experience. No, her loving husband Jason would never speak to her again. Hearing how he disowned their daughter left her heartbroken. Brandy fell into a deep depression due to the breakdown of her parents' marriage. To cope with the pain and save her own marriage, which was now falling apart, she turned to a psychotherapist. A few months later, the house was restored. Jason continued to pay the court-ordered compensation and, without warning anyone, sold the house. One day after the sale, Maggie came to him to try to reconcile and ask for forgiveness. When she rang the bell, she was greeted by a young couple opening the door. "Hello, how can we help you?" the woman asked. "Yes, I'm looking for Jason Spencer. He is here? Oh, that nice man who sold us this house? No, he said he was leaving the country to start a new life. He was so sweet and so helpful. Are you by any chance Maggie?" "Yes, it's me. He left an envelope and asked us to give it to you if you ever stop by." "Thank you. I will read it later. Good luck and enjoy this wonderful home." Maggie sat in the car and cried, knowing that she would never see Jason again, and about the love that she had so carelessly thrown away. Returning to her lonely apartment, she sat up in bed, her hand trembling as she opened the letter. Maggie, 30 wonderful years. I will always remember the wonderful life we lived together. You were my first and only love, and I am very sorry that I did not cope with the role of your husband. If I had known that you needed more, I would have raised heaven and earth for you. But since you have decided to seek your path alone, then this is how we will end our marriage. Alone. After 2 wonderful weeks leading up to your betrayal, I actually believed that you had fallen in love with me again. These weeks were the happiest in all the years that I spent with you. When Brandy explained how you used these weeks to distract me from your betrayal, it crushed my soul. I'm sure your daughter already told you, but that night I was so excited to come home to give you a special night. With 24 roses, your favorite chocolates, and wine, I was going to surprise you with a new cruise on the yacht Love. Having learned that your love and adoration was fake, and your real goal was to sleep with another man, I felt humiliated. Congratulations, you ruined me and our marriage. Because of this, I can no longer stay in this city. I quit my job and found a new life in another country. Don't try to look for me because I will be offline, and I really don't want to talk to you or your daughter anymore. This part of my life is over and I will start a new life without you. It will take me years to get over the pain and betrayal you both caused. There was no way I could stay in this wonderful home without the love of my life and my wonderful daughter. Since both of them are now dead to me, I have no reason to stay here. I sincerely hope that your special night was worth our marriage and my love. I suspect so, and I'm sure you and your daughter will enjoy the stories you share. Have a happy life, and please forget about me and our years together. Like I already did, my new life has already begun without you. J.S. She actually thought there were no more tears left, but after reading his letter she sobbed uncontrollably all night, curled up in a ball. The excitement and memories of the amazing sex with Alexander became a distant memory, now replaced by regret and sadness. Now, aged 52 and alone, she knew her future without Jason was bleak. She gave up her luxurious life for one night of selfish excitement. Jason came to Alexander late at night, as he was leaving for his new home in Ecuador. When the door opened, Jason pushed his way into the house and introduced himself as the husband of the woman he had stolen from him. Alexander tried to explain that he thought Maggie didn't mind being with him and would never have pursued her if he thought she didn't. But it was too late. Jason didn't accept any of his excuses. All the anger, rage, and pain with which he had lived for the past months turned out to be directed at the predator standing in front of him. The conversation was quick, as Jason used a crowbar. In less than a minute, Alexander's life changed forever. Before Jason walked to his waiting Uber to leave for the airport and fly out of the country, he looked at the wincing man and said, "I give advice, asshole. Having sex with a married woman is harmful to your health." By the time Alexander arrived at the emergency room and told the police what had happened, Jason was already on his way to his new apartment on the beach in the province of Manabi. His new life had to begin without his previous baggage and family. It took police detectives 2 weeks to figure out that Jason was no longer in the country, and they couldn't touch him until he returned home. Even if they managed to find him, there is no extradition in Ecuador for assault charges. Alexander spent 2 agonizing weeks in the hospital and many months in physical therapy, learning to walk with his new knees. Unfortunately for him, the 25 stitches on his face will remain a lasting reminder of that night with the married woman. He didn't know what his life would be like, but he knew that the life he once had was over thanks to those 2 women who convinced him to take someone else's wife. He never spoke or saw Maggie or Brandy again. Brandy's husband, Mike, nearly divorced her over the incident, but a psychologist helped Brandy understand what she had done, and she promised to remain faithful to Mike and their future family. Mike waited 2 years before agreeing to have children, to convince himself that his wife would never betray him the way she betrayed her father. True to his word and her remorse, Jason never spoke to Brandy again. By her action, she forever rejected her dad and his love. Upon learning of Alexander's beating, Maggie and Brandy were devastated and felt responsible for the attack, adding to the guilt and pain they caused Jason and for destroying their family. It was another reminder that their actions had far-reaching consequences that they didn't even know about. Both realized that their delusional thoughts, that if only Jason had allowed Maggie that one time, their happy life would have continued, were wrong. Their stupidity meant that a happy life could never be further from the truth. The loss of their father and husband became a deep pain for them, with which they will live until the end of their days. Due to depression and age, she never found another man and lived a lonely, sad life. All her plans for a happy old age with Jason and their grandchildren were now just a distant memory. Since Jason stopped paying child support as soon as he left the country, her savings won't last long and she'll have to continue working to survive. Crying in her sleep became her usual activity. I now have over $750,000 from the sale of my house, and the money I have saved over the past 30 years, minus the purchase of my new apartment. With this amount of money here in Ecuador, my next 30 years will be lived in comfort and peace. There are a lot of young, pretty women here who appreciate the generous American man, and I enjoy being with all of them. 6 months after that terrible night, I found myself on the beach in Puerto Lopez, opposite my new apartment, drinking a cold beer, and came to the realization that divorce is normal. Breaking up is okay. It's okay to be alone. What is not normal is staying in a place where you are not valued or valued. This will never happen again. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.